Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our final workshop of the day. Hurrah! We've had a fantastic day today. It's been full of content, very rich and deep with cultural conversations from a number of guest speakers and from the BID team themselves. We move on to our third and final workshop as we explore strengths across the Solent. This workshop is led by the very wonderful Carolyn Abel, who is Head of Culture and Tourism for Southampton City Council. Carolyn will also be joined by also the very wonderful Dalia Jamil from Art Asia, Professor Joanna Sofa from the University of Southampton, Sally Igra from the New Forest District Council, Paulina Petrowski from Southampton City Council, and Mark Rands from Barclays Eagle Labs. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolyn.
Thank you very much, AJ. And as I would like to say, we save the best to the last, don't we, darling? So, an esteemed company today, so I'm really delighted that you could join us, and those that are still with us today, online and in person, really appreciate it. We've heard a lot about the sort of challenges and the opportunities within the Solent region this morning and this afternoon. But I think it's also understanding what some of the strengths are and therefore what we can build upon and go forth from here. And that's really important. And that's about individuals. I think we've seen a lot from individuals that are shown enormous determination, personality and drive to make things happen, and I see that in this table as well and in this room and online. But that's a really important characteristic when you think about what makes success in a place and in an organisation. It also comes down to people that drive that through. So I think what we'd also like to do is just think about some of those factors of success. And I'm sure there'll be sort of considerations around the barriers that people have experienced. Some of the common and maybe some different ones that we might hear today. So if I may, I will go to Dalia Jamil first to talk about 40 years of Art Asia, which is a phenomenal achievement. So Dalia, if you could take us away, please.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you for having me this afternoon. Yes, we have saved the best till the last. We're actually going to be talking about creativity. I represent Art Asia, which is an organisation that was born in the city of Southampton, very proud of it, and we celebrated our 40th anniversary with a huge concert with the world's greatest maestros, Zakir Hussain, absolutely icing on the cake. And we were able to do this through collaboration with the City of Culture, through Mass Theatre as well. And I think that is perhaps speaks volumes about what the future holds for us with this City of Culture bid. It's about bringing organisation and people together who may have been ships in passing in the past, but the whole bid process actually allowed us to get together. I'm not here to speak about the bid, I'm here to speak about Art Asia, and certainly neither Carolyn nor Claire has paid me to say that either. They have given me badges, by the way. So Art Asia's journey began about 40 years ago, and again it was through the absolute dedicated work of volunteers who were determined. The person that started the Art Asia and his group of friends, in fact, they used to run around schools with the harmonium. I don't know if you know what a harmonium is. It's like a portable piano, Indian version or Asian version, from school to school, teaching children during the brief half-an-hour lunch break. And that was it. So that was the start of Art Asia. And the strength there, which has still continued and continues, hopefully, and will continue, is the passion of absolute people and volunteers within the community. Whatever they could do, they did. And I think the success for any organisation, any person, is about that passion. You think about what is it that you want to do? What is it that you're passionate about? It's not about somebody ticking boxes. It's not about doing something from the curriculum. It's about you being passionate. And I think in the 80s, the other thing that was very obviously very strong was the fact that you didn't have a lot, you didn't know about Asian culture, for example. We were still in the kind of, a stranger to be good friends with, but perhaps not understanding. And things have moved on tremendously. We talk about inclusion, we talk about diversity, we talk about how actually it's not about us and them anymore. It is about us. Us who live in Southampton, us who will avail of all the opportunities in Southampton, be it through schools, universities, colleges, theatres, whatsoever. And that is a key factor, that it is us. It's not about, they're diverse or they're a different organisation to us. It's not that. We're all in it together, whether we like it or not. And that's being part of a large family or a large community of Southampton, that we are all very passionate about to make Southampton visible. I was struck by the speaker who said that I've been here for such a long time and yet Southampton is not figured as such. And in a sense, he's quite right. Somehow or other along the line, Southampton, which has wonderful, absolutely wonderful cultural activities, whether it's in a bar, at the university, on the street, we've not been able to actually promote that, to say this is a destination. We have these wonderful theatres, we have these wonderful opportunities. Come and see, come and live, come and do, all that sort of thing. My daughter lives in London and she will trudge her way here to Southampton 3 times a year at least to see shows at Mayflower Theatre, because they're of performance, a high quality West End performance, but delivered within such a lovely space as well. Much better than, tripping down to London on the Underground or whatever. So I think those are the kind of selling points that Southampton in future will have to concentrate on. Well, back to the MELA, back to Art Asia rather. We're a combined arts organisation, and we are very well known for our MELA, Southampton MELA Festival. I don't like bandying statistics, but it is actually useful. About 30 to 32,000 people attend the half-a-day event, which is held at Hoglands Park. And we've always been, at the board level, we're unsure whether to call it Art Asia MELA or a Southampton MELA. And I remember the debates, and we said, no, this belongs to the city, this belongs to us, this is about Southampton. It's not a special kind of ethnic or whatever MELA. It will have the essence of it, but it is the Southampton MELA, and people need to take kind of responsibility for that. And we've been very lucky through grants we are an MPO, so the Arts Council has funded us to deliver the MELA, and been supported by the City Council. When I say the MELA, and I just say it's a day-long festival, it isn't really, because what we do is throughout the whole year, we work with schools, working with young people, we work with community groups, we work with women's group, and we work with students. Not so successfully in the past, but hopefully that will get better, in developing the content for the MELA. So it's not like an organisation that is just into the city, delivers an event and trots off again. We actually spend a lot of time throughout the year in schools, in colleges, with partner organisations who've got the skills as well to deliver that wonderful day of festivities. And for those of you who don't know what a MELA is, I hope you do, but in case you don't, it is a festival. In Southampton, we have four stages actually. We have a main stage where most of our international artists are showcased. We have a world stage where fusion music and young producers can actually promote, and young artists as well, their own content, if you like. And we have the most popular is the community stage, where all the communities in Southampton, and I have to say we try to sort of rotate, because there are so many communities that at least 10 or 12 community groups will do the performances, the children will perform, and there's spaces for children, the school children, to perform. We've got partnership with the Southampton Music Hub, which has been absolutely brilliant, actually, bringing in children into the festival. It does two things. The children can embrace that platform, but also, if you bring in children, you actually bring in families as well. And when families are in a space which normally they would not choose to be in because they don't see the festival as part of, they recognize, then you get these wonderful kind of following of audience. And over the last 20 years, I have to say, the Mela Festival, whether we advertise it or not, there is a following which just comes across. And it's not just Southampton. In the past, we've had busloads of people from London, from Reading, from the South Coast as well, because the Southampton Mela Festival, and I think Southampton can be proud of that, is the only kind of Mela held in the southern region. Ajay can perhaps correct me but that, as far as I understand, that is it. So why is, because we do a lot of things, and this is one of my passion, is that in the morning people spoke about that art and creativity. The minute you talk about creativity and art, the mind sort of zooms into that kind of, yes, singing, dancing, piano, or visual art, something like that. But creativity can be and can take many shapes and forms. And we've heard this morning that creativity is actually lacking in schools because it's not part of their curriculum. And our success has been that all the schools that we worked with, there's always been this one person. You need to hit the right person, not necessarily the head teacher, but somebody who's certainly interested in what you're doing, and then the rest just falls into place. And that is essential. For me, working for Art Asia, it is essential because we work in the most deprived neighborhoods, we work with ethnic minority children, we work with refugee and asylum seeking children who have all the horrors of all the things that they have brought here. And giving them that space, whether within the school or outside in the community groups, it is absolutely amazing to see what can happen and the transformation. We did a partnership project with the John Hansard Gallery, and one of our local schools, Mount Pleasant Junior School, they brought, I think, about 15 to 20 children to do some batik art, visual arts. I walked into that room and there was pin drop silence because those children, and they were, I think, 9, something like that, very young, they were so concentrated on what they were doing. Not a sound, no nothing. You know, it was their kind of absolute visual focus. But not only that, that was probably the first time they had done something that was very different. And after that incident, a few of the parents came to me in the following weeks and they said they had such a wonderful time, they had this opportunity, it was in a different space, that's important. It wasn't in a learning space, it was in a different space. And I think that's very important, to take people out from safe spaces, if you like, into something that they would soon become accustomed to. And that again has been one of our missions, that we actually work with children and families and women, take them out to spaces that they wouldn't see, but actually let them discover themselves. And it's been quite a healing process as well. I'm very proud of the fact that we work with a lot of community groups, and that's been, again, extraordinary. And I think what the Arts Council are now saying about community partnerships and things like that, all of us, most of the people that I know around this room, we were doing that without someone telling us. Because at the end of the day, if you're talking about art and culture, it has to be reachable. It's not for people at the top who have had the privilege of going to good schools and universities and what have you, but it's about people who haven't had those opportunities, who haven't done these things before. And for them, it is an absolute awakening. And I think that's the most critical thinking about when we talk about creativity or arts and culture. It's about the awakening in you. It's not about you being a brilliant singer or you being a brilliant dancer. It's about that experience that sort of changes your lifestyle. And I do think, I firmly believe that it's got to start at the bottom. You've got to create that imagination, that all that sort of thoughts when they're children. I think Shalina this morning said, what about the parents of migrants who say that you have to be a doctor, engineer, and what have you? Absolutely right, because people have come to make a better life for themselves. That's why they've moved through all sorts of reasons, migration. But what it does also mean is that you've got to give children those kind of choices. Parents must see that these are good choices, that's what you do. I'm from Bangladesh, and in my heritage, you grew up alongside your education and your religion. You had to have singing, dancing, poetry, everything, festivals. It was part of it. It wasn't an add-on. And I think here, especially in the West, it is very add-on. And I don't know I don't know enough about the history of arts and culture here, but it seems to me that's what differentiates, or somebody tried to differentiate between the classes. You are here and you are there, and this is what's for us. But when I grew up, and where I grew up, and within this South Asian culture, arts is part of you. So you had to recite poetry, you sang, you danced. My dancing tutor said, you're never going to be a dancer, so cut that out, So that was the end of my career on that. But that's so much part of it and so much ingrained that I could recite poetry now, which, I'm sure others couldn't like that. So it's very important that when we are thinking about the creative industry, and we've had lots of speakers who've been really inspiring with facts and figures, that we just don't think it at that level. You've got to think of the pipeline. You really have to think, how are they going to, at each stage, how are they going to reach that? One of the things we know for certain is that there is a lack of diversity in the arts and culture. That is, there are not many women, there are not many black people, there are not many disabled people, and how do you try and redress that? That is a huge question that, we don't have answers for, but the way to redress is that to give opportunities and platform. And again, speakers spoke about those opportunities and platform. At the Mela Festival, that's what we like to do. We like to encourage young producers, make something, do something, create something. But at the same time, as employers, and we are that, we have to the fear of disaster, I think. We've got to let it go. Close your eyes and say, yes, it might be good, it might be a thing. It's the risk-taking factor that is very important. But at the moment, from where I sit as a decision maker, there are not opportunities, there's too many bureaucracies, and there's not the way, how can you become that? And also, there isn't the financial incentive either to be an artist. This morning I was talking to Ajay about this wonderful, brilliant young man who's a dancer. And I said, is he around? And he said, well, actually, he's working for the NHS full time. Well, good luck. But we have, in the arts sector, and especially a male dancer, it's quite, it is quite sad for me to see that. So it's all about sustainability. It's about taking whoever you are, the actor, the singer, the dancer, whatever, from the school, from cradle to grave, literally, that is very important. And Art Asia can't provide that. So what we're trying to do is collaborate with people, signpost them, and say, go towards that place, do that. And also, visibility is very important. Not marginalization when someone wants to take a tick box, but visibility about the quality and the opportunity. Opportunities are still lacking. It's no good, me sitting here and saying there are lots of opportunities. There isn't that opportunity. It's quite a hard world out there. However, on a more kind of positive note, Carolyn, sorry, I'm probably hogging the whole thing, is that the whole COVID thing threw us. No outdoor festival, no classes, no workshops, no anything. And then we discovered the digital platform. And that was a huge learning experience for us. And the digital platform has absolutely transformed Art Asia. We've got people from all over the world now wanting to join our classes, and you think, really? How did that happen? So in a way, as an organization, we're having to rethink, revamp, how our delivery and content as well. But it has been an opportunity, real good opportunity, and all the things that go with the filmmaking and everything. That's been absolutely amazing, actually. I could go on and sit here and not let others speak, so I'm going to stop here. Yeah.
Thank you, Dahlia. That's really helpful. I think what, you know, in terms of Art Asia in 40 years, it's understanding what the strengths of what Art Asia has done, and that's about adaptation, pivot, but also being authentic to the place that you work and the communities that you work with, and also challenging. I think that's really important in terms of a place. I know. So thank you, Dahlia. So let's just take a time walk back a bit as well. So Jo is Professor of Archaeology at University of Southampton. So I just want you to sort of explore the sort of theme around heritage and the strengths across the region in that context as well. So thank you, Jo.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Shall I just move this? I'll just move that to there, yeah. So as Carolyn said, I'm Professor of Archaeology at the University of Southampton, and I'm also the co-director of the Southampton Institute for Arts and Humanities. So my view is very much, if you like, an academic, and what I want to talk about today is, in a sense, quite evidence-driven. But I hope that it won't be academic in the sense of being removed, that notion of the ivory tower, which couldn't be more untrue in a way in terms of where I'm sitting and what I'd like to sort of bring to this conversation. So I want to speak to the idea of strengths across the Solent from the perspective of heritage as a pivot and catalyst for creativity, growth and regeneration. Now there are two ways in which you could look at this, I think. One is a sort of obvious way, which is leveraging heritage through tourism, bringing visitors to our region. And of course, So25 has an important role in that. But on the other hand, there's also increasing evidence that heritage offers important social benefits that underpin well-being. And if you'll forgive me for a slight diversion there, well-being is one of the present government's 12 missions of the Levelling Up agenda. And there's increasing recognition within central government that heritage, and I quote from Rishi Sunak, can strengthen the local economy and build civic identity, and that heritage is part of the infrastructure of everyday life. Now, irrespective of one's political position, these things are, in fact, incredibly clearly signposted within the literature, within research. So if we take that as a starting point, heritage is an important way, potentially, of making the Solent region a better place in which to live, to do business, and to attract new talent. So if we're interested in growth and sustainability, then we do need to take heritage seriously. And of course, the Solent region is incredibly rich in heritage. But what do I mean by heritage? Now you can tell I'm an academic. So heritage is not just the large built assets of our fabulous medieval walls, or Osborne House in the Isle of Wight, beautiful as it is, or Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. It includes the natural heritage of the New Forest, our city centre parks. It is about who we are and where we come from. It's about places, collections, objects, traditions, and memories. It doesn't have to be old, doesn't have to be a listed building, and that kind of what we might call authorised heritage. Fundamentally, heritage is a concept that enables us to capture the richness of life and the values we want to give to the connection between past and present, and it is what we make of it that counts. It can be the value that you attach to your school, to your pub, to your place of worship, to your playground, to a photo, to an object, or even something that your grandmother gave you. It can be your high street. It can be literally heritage on your doorstep. Some aspects of heritage are pleasurable, like an enjoyable space, enjoying an aesthetic of place. Some are emotionally complex, like Monument to the Titanic, which I passed on my way here. the role of Southampton as a place in departing for war, or as an entry port for people making a different, better life for themselves. So heritage is the everyday as well as the exceptional. It relates to people, and it should be inclusive rather than elitist, because each one of us has a history. So heritage, I'm trying to get over to you, is not just buildings. It's not just what, goes into a kind of list. It's who we are, and what we make of it is what counts. So what does heritage do? Well, let's go back to that evidence base. There is increasing evidence that heritage improves well-being in at least 3 key ways. First of all, heritage is important for placemaking and the creation of community in terms of both a sense of place, that's a notion of, if you like, rootedness and social identity, and place attachment, which are the psychological effects of the qualities of place. Second, heritage engagement improves subjective well-being in a wide variety of ways. So it increases happiness, it reduces people's anxiety, and a connection to the past also contributes to deep well-being effects through creating a sense of security, reflecting on who we are, and creating our place in the world. So I did a piece of work around the ways in which people were using heritage during the pandemic, and it was very clear that that relationship to past was giving people a sense of being able to cope with the pandemic because they could see themselves in relation to a larger long-term history in which people had survived and they had coped and they had come out the other side. And the third thing is that heritage moves the imagination and it stimulates creativity, and it's through that that it also creates well-being. So we've got these 3 things where we know heritage works to do things for us in terms of our well-being. But how can we make that work for us in So25, in the City of Culture? So let's go back, let's take each of these 3 in turn. First, the sense of place. So we know that heritage is important to this sense of place and to community and to placemaking. In the particular case of Southampton, while it has a very rich heritage, I think there's a sense that it struggles with its sense of identity. There's a gap between this richness of heritage and the recognition of heritage. And it is that recognition of heritage that assists people with well-being to a large extent, perhaps. So why is this? Why is there this gap? So I think there are 2 potential reasons that I might put out there. First, of course, World War II bombing destroyed many of the things that are obviously old in the centre of town in terms of those public spaces. So much of Southampton, or parts of Southampton, are in fact new or remade places. It's this combination of the new and the old, and where do we sit in that feels a little bit uncertain. The second is the lack of recognition of what heritage is or could be, because there's a perception that heritage is this big fancy building, or that it is a thing, it is a view, it is something that has to be on a list and protected. And that's not the case at all. That's why I went to all that trouble about telling you what heritage might be. So how can we work with this? Well, we can't change the fact that lots of Southampton was bombed and that West Quay is there and other things, and nor should we, because the world changes and we have to reflect change. We shouldn't have a city which stays static. But what we can do something about is creating dialogue with people around what heritage is to them, about the spaces and the places that matter. And a colleague of mine, Nikki Marsh, is working on a project looking at civic pride and coming up with ideas around that. That might be useful for us here too. So we can develop a sense of heritage as a city and as a region, and through this a sense of identity that is linked to our place. So what about point number 2? Point number 2 was that heritage engagement creates well-being. So City of Culture gives us an amazing opportunity to engage with heritage, to create this ground-up sense of what heritage might be. Not creating a list of buildings, but an understanding of what and why places are important to people. So again, this could be anything. It could be your workplace, your school, your pub, your nan's kitchen. It's the places where our histories, both personal and community, are created. We know that social connections are one of the strongest predictors of well-being throughout the life course. And it's through that experience of relating to each other through heritage engagement that we can create social spaces in which to create connections. So heritage is more than just a thing or a place, it's a social space. And that, I think, is really, really important. And that is why heritage engagement can be so powerful as a means of creating well-being. And then to my third point, heritage moving the imagination. So heritage stimulates imagination and that creates well-being. And this insight, in fact, gives us a methodology by which we can create heritage engagement and further the well-being effects of heritage. Creative practice brings people in contact with heritage. It creates new forms of heritage potentially. It creates different kinds of creative outcomes. And so City of Culture is the means by which we can stimulate, we can provoke, we can engage and create a greater sense of well-being through that relationship. And again, in my role as co-director of the Southampton Institute of Arts and Humanities, we're experimenting with different forms of engagement. That can be anything from creative writing through to different forms of arts practice, and thinking about ways of engaging that bridge natural and cultural heritage. So what I've tried to do then is create an underpinning for why heritage might be important and what it can do for us, how we can actually use it in a really concrete way. Because I think understanding these fundamental underpinnings gives us the potential to really make the most of So25 as a mechanism to enable long-term sustainable growth. Okay.
Thank you, Jo. I think it's, if you think back to the film that we saw, Jo probably won't have seen it, where the sense of place, the heritage were part of that story in the film, and the poetry that came through. So that's the stimulus and the response, and it was a fantastic film as well. So moving on, I'd like to come to Sally now from New Forest to talk about film New Forest, because I think that's another perspective where that connects in terms of a place, heritage, the natural landscape and the opportunities that surround that. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. I'm Sally Igra. I'm the Economic Development Team Leader at New Forest District Council. We run a number of projects to support the local economy, one of which is Film New Forest. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background to Film New Forest. It was launched by the District Council in 2016, and it provides support and advice to TV and film productions looking to use New Forest locations. We're supported in this by a close working relationship with Creative UK, rather than Creative England there, Creative UK's Filming in England team, and we're also part of a network of other film offices which are largely supported through local authorities. The launch of Film New Forest was supported by a promotional film called Through the Wardrobe, with an introduction and narration by film critic and writer Mark, who also happens to be a New Forest resident. This showcases the huge variety of locations available in the New Forest, and in fact they're all really close together, and they're only 90 minutes from the UK's main film studios. We also have great infrastructure to support those filming productions in terms of accommodation and other venues. The film describes New Forest's locations far more eloquently than I can, so I'd encourage you after this event to view it at filmnewforest.com. It's only 4 minutes long. So why did the council set up Film New Forest? As you've heard throughout today, the film and TV sector is a major contributor to the UK creative industry's economy. The core UK film industry, taken on its own, was estimated to contribute over 4.6 billion to UK GDP and support over 117,000 jobs. The New Forest, because of its proximity to London and its huge range of different filming locations, has always received inquiries about filming productions, but the council identified the opportunity to focus this engagement through a dedicated film office, and as such launched Film New Forest. Its primary objective is to create film and television related spend in the local economy, and this is through inward investment from production spend in the local area, for example through use of local businesses and supply chains. Also local employment of film and TV crew, many freelancers and many productions use local crew. And there's also an element of boosting visitor spend through screen tourism, so people going out to visit the locations they've seen on TV. So our role is fundamentally to attract appropriate filming, and the use of the word appropriate is key, particularly in a protected landscape like the New Forest. The filming to safeguard and promote the special qualities of the area. We act as a first point of contact. I often use the matchmaking analogy for production companies looking to film in the district, not only to find locations, but also to help them to access partners who can help with filming permissions and that kind of thing. We also manage the New Forest Locations database, which is an online resource for production companies looking for New Forest locations. Key to this work is close liaison with local owners, so residents, businesses and landowners, to ensure a wide range of locations are available. Everything from a basement in an 18th century cottage to a sweeping panoramic view of the New Forest. We also manage our New Forest crew and services database to provide a resource of local crew and services to promote productions. We also provide training opportunities for local film crew to enable them to meet the needs of the film and TV productions. And we also have a role to increase understanding amongst local residents and businesses of the value and contribution of film and TV to the local economy. So what have our achievements been since we started? So we work closely with Creative UK's Filming England team, as I mentioned, and we've been successful in securing a wide range of appropriate productions, including film, documentaries and commercials. This is included, and as someone mentioned earlier, Solo, a Star Wars story, was filmed at the former Fawley Power Station for 25 days, and this was estimated to have brought £1 million into the local economy. ITV's Unforgotten was filmed in and around Lymington for 4 days, and this was estimated to have brought £64,000 into the local economy. And more recently, a BBC documentary, The New Forest, brought an estimated £245,000 to the local economy, and that's without the added benefit of screen tourism, people visiting the locations that appeared in the documentary. So one aspect of our future work, one of the things that Creative UK have identified is an increase in demand for UK location doubles. So we're looking at expanding our locations database, and examples of recent New Forest location doubles that were facilitated by our team were Rhinefield House Hotel, that was a double for Balmoral, and Bewley River, and I'm always slightly surprised by this, but it doubled as Miami River. So next time you watch a TV production or a film and you think, hey, that looks familiar, it's probably because it is. We're also looking at how we can further support local crew and service providers, again, to ensure that they have the skills that are needed by film productions coming to the forest. So as mentioned earlier, please visit filmnewforest.com, watch our fantastic film about what the New Forest can offer as a filming location. And again, you might want to play I Spy because you will have seen them in various films and TV productions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. I thought you were going to say the Mississippi. I think it's really interesting because we've already heard this morning about the opportunities around film and location and place and the identity aspects of it. So that was really helpful and good examples that I think we could build upon. So I know in Southampton we'd like to talk to you a bit more about that. So that'd be brilliant. And if I can move on now to Paulina and Mark, so they're going to do a double act, particularly around sort of gaming, and for me that's it's quite an interesting connection with the panel, because I see gaming as also being able to respond to the heritage and be inspiring stories, and how the work of Dahlia might inform some of that as well. So I think it's really interesting. So I'll pass it over to you, Mark.
Can I start? So, hi, I'm Paulina. I work for economic development at Southampton City Council. One of the main important role of our team is working with businesses and investors, and also working with key sectors in Southampton, but as well as emerging sectors in Southampton. And one of those key emerging sectors in Southampton is game and virtual reality. And I think I'm going to tell a little bit about the strength of this market, not just in Southampton, but also in the whole South East, and why is it so important. So we've got 2 universities in Southampton, and all of those 2 universities produce fantastic talent, and they provide game-related courses. We've got colleges, Totton College, and as an example, Southampton City College provide talent in games as well. And all those talents we have in Southampton are moving from Southampton and working in other cities and within the game industries. And I cannot stress more how game industry is important, not just in Southampton, but globally. In 2020, the industry grew by 23%, mainly due to COVID. But at the moment, globally, the games industry is worth about, if I can just look, $175 billion globally. Okay, and by 2024, it will be worth $218 billion. The biggest market at the moment for the games is Asia Pacific countries. The second one is North America, and the third is Europe. And the UK is the 6th largest market for games. So you would think, okay, but what about Southampton? As I said, we've got a huge talent. And do you know, just quickly questions, how many people just in the UK play games? About 33 million people on their smartphones. This is a huge market. We produce so many talents that it's basically disappearing, not just from Southampton, but going to those hubs in Guildford, in Brighton, mainly in London. And as we know, people want to move back to their homes, to Southampton, but we need to make sure that we, as in Southampton, got a market for those businesses, for those big production studios to come to Southampton, come to Winchester, for example, not necessarily to Southampton, but just around, so those people can stay in Southampton and bring income and revenues to our city. I'll pass it quickly to Mark, and I will add some bits and pieces as well.
Thanks, Paulina. So hi, my name's Mark. I am part of the Barclays Eagle Labs team in Southampton. We work in partnership with Southampton City Council. Now, our kind of key element of what we do is as a business incubator space, but my speciality is within the games and esports industry. We get quite a lot of funny looks as to why we have a biased location and a speciality location in Southampton. Let's be honest, it's not what Southampton is known for. The reason, as Paulina mentioned, we've got 2 fantastic universities that both do brilliant courses. Just down the road, we've got Portsmouth, we've got Bournemouth. You know, the whole Solent is fantastic for its creativity. Now, I had in my head an idea of what I was going to say. As you can see, I'm not quite as prepared as the ladies on the panel with me. I was going to freehand it a little bit, but some of the things that they've been saying has really resonated. When we've talked about culture, we've talked about heritage. These are all things that play into the games industry. The games industry isn't just your PlayStations, just your Xboxes, your various different consoles. It's not just your Candy Crushes and various different games that are on your phone. There's so many practical elements to this. I was on an event not long ago with the Royal Shakespeare Company that was able to use technology from the games industry to make an interactive showing of the Taming of the Shrew. There's business, there's educational purposes to it. There's well-being purposes to it. I was talking to a business a couple of days ago that has created a VR situation for children with learning difficulties that can help them learn in a calm and relaxed environment away from the hecticness of a mainstream classroom. There's so much that goes into it, and I say we've got so much talent in Southampton and in the local area that talent drain out to the Londons, the Brightons, the Guildfords it's depressing to see sometimes. You know, one of Southampton's biggest strengths in our transport link and all of the areas we have is also one of our biggest weaknesses, and I'm sure that's not just the games industry, and it goes across the board, but it is something that is challenging. However, COVID has created a real opportunity for us as a city. People are getting used to the idea that you don't have to travel to London, you don't have to travel to hubs in order to be successful. You can be successful while working remotely. And this is a great opportunity for us because we can really showcase the talent that's here. And you know, we're doing what we can to do that. We're soon to host Southampton Games Day down at St Mary's Stadium, which is a great opportunity to bring the universities and the industry together to showcase the different levels of work. And again, you know, we're looking at the casual gamer, we're looking at professional gaming, we're looking at gamification, all things that can come into this. And really, as I say, there's no reason why Southampton can't make our name again in this industry. As I say, there's many reports that say the Southampton and the Solent is the best area to study games and games development outside of London. That's something that we should be proud of. Now what we need to do, however, is keep those people here, keep the businesses here, and keep working from there. And I'll call it a day at that bit as a brief overview.
Thank you. Paulina, did you have something else to add?
And I just want to say that game graduates, they have transferable skills. This is the STEM skills that employers can use for software engineering, cybersecurity. Those skills are very high in demand, and as Jodie was saying, graduates can have can go on apprenticeships. Other students from the colleges can go on apprenticeships and practice games development and productions. And other STEM subjects. This is really important for the industry because there is a demand, and because the industry is growing so fast, there will be jobs. There will be hundreds of jobs.
Definitely, and just to add to what Paulina says, you know, there's a change in culture now where, let's be honest, I'm sure people in here might have even said things like this, where you can't make a career in games. You can't become a YouTuber and make money out of that. We're in a world now where you can. Is the long and short of it. There are so many careers in it. There's sound production, there's video production, there's lighting that goes into all of these things. It goes across all of the arts, from script writing to audio, again, to, you know, there's roles within diversity in games is obviously such a big thing now, bringing different cultures to the forefront. Some of the biggest games recently have been ones that have really pushed the boundaries of what we know. You know, I won't plug any specific games, but we've all heard about those specifically in the paper where we've really pushed the boundaries of what people can do. And it's the industry that enables people to experience other cultures, other situations in a safe environment.
Thank you. That was, I think that was what's really interesting, and in a sense across the day and also just on this panel is about the interdependencies. It's the cross-fertilisation. So we need the Matts and the Dans of the world in terms of the artists and the creatives that will feed into storytelling and making about the city, the heritage of the people, but then we've got this new technology and the opportunities that come out of it. And I think that's really important, and that's a real strength for the whole of the Solent and how we learn from each other in that context. So I think it was really, really quite powerful. So I'm just going to open it first to any questions. So go on, Alison.
Thank you. I've got one online from Adele. She says, how can the skills be retained in the area when it's a global market?
The thing is about games, it's you need to act local and think global. As I said, the market will not going to change in terms of where the games are. It's going to be Asian Pacific countries that dominate the game industry on smartphones, that mean China and South Korea. So in my view is that you don't have to be in China to design games, to design fantastic games, but what you need to know is to understand the local market that you want to sell your games to. So if you are designing and developing games for educational sectors, because colleges and schools using games to teach children through experience, you need to focus on that market. But if you want to focus on developing just games like Candy Crush, for example, you may be a next developer of Candy Crush, then you need to understand your market and end users before you go into big companies like Microsoft or Ubisoft or EA and sell your product and show your product. Because interviews for game developers with those big firms, it does not look like the interviews for normal general jobs. You need to show your portfolio, you need to show what you have designed so far.
Just to kind of support what Paulina said, there is an element with the games industry that it's always been relatively global, that they have a model, especially across the AAA companies and the larger companies, where they call it chasing the sun, where they will have a company right around the world doing different parts of the game so that they're making use of all 24 hours. I'm sure they would love to make use of more hours in a day than are possible if they could to get the profits up, but they really do try to encourage that. And what we have to do in Southampton is create that environment where people feel empowered to stay here, that you don't have to be, like many other industries, you don't have to be sat in an office in London, in Guildford, to be successful. And it's creating the opportunities and the examples where we can showcase that. And in the different ways, it's not focusing on one small area of the industry. As I said, it covers many, many different parts. It's getting an understanding of how broad the games industry actually is.
Thank you. Sally, I don't know if you mentioned about training as part of the work you do. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think it's really that now, as I mentioned, a lot of film production companies use local freelance crew. So it's not just a matter of you having to migrate out of an area to be able to access work in film and TV, that they are to some extent coming to you now. If you've got the skills and can diversify what you can do, and you are meeting the needs of those film crews, there is no reason that you can't stay in your area to offer those skills to incoming investment. But it is really a question of making sure you're offering what they need rather than what you want to offer.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's key.
Thank you. Any other questions on the floor or online? Claire?
I've got one for Sally. From the work that you've done with Creative UK, what's your top learning from that? We know in Southampton that it's an underdeveloped area for us, so what tips would you give?
I think and certainly when you watch the video, you'll see that Hayley Armstrong, I think it's Hayley, don't want to misquote her, but says that we have a can-do attitude. So I think that's really important, that when you have film productions coming, they've sometimes got a very clear view. They want to film in this location, and sometimes for whatever reason that isn't possible. And it's then making sure that actually that isn't maybe going to work, but have you thought about this and this? So it's having that local knowledge, and we're really lucky. We've got skills within the team, a lot of in-depth local knowledge that helps to sometimes come up with those slightly obscure locations that actually is really what that production company wants, and it means then they're not going somewhere else to find that. So I think it's that being flexible and really knowing your local area. That's my top tip anyhow. That's only one, well, that's two, isn't it?
We're booking a call. Thank you. I guess just one sort of final point to touch on, just thinking about heritage and the opportunities. Because I think sometimes it can be seen as just a backdrop, but actually there's more to that, because actually there's the creative act of the architecture that built some of those buildings that still exist today, but also the craft skills that come with that, and that's a creative process too. But there are challenges within the heritage sector around that. I don't know if you've got any thoughts about how we can seek to, one, address that, and two, integrate it in terms of the wider connections across this creative sector.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think that those kinds of skills are in short supply across the country. But there are moves within the sector to develop those, and there are quite substantial moves because it has been recognised as an area of need. And again, going back to the potential of our region, I think there's enormous potential to get in on that sort of traditional skills agenda, but also to use those skills in new ways. So one of the things that I do, is another hat that I wear, is I run something called Archaeology for the Creative Industries, where we've in the past we've worked with the Crafts Council and other organisations, a whole wide range of organisations, from composers and dance choreographers through to artists and craftspeople on the other side. And it's about using heritage as a way of inspiring and developing new forms of creative practice. And that doesn't mean necessarily always taking a traditional skills path. It maybe means taking ideas or thoughts or inspiration and moving it into other directions. And that's been really, really interesting to see how that goes, because it's a totally different way of thinking about heritage than popping heritage into a museum cabinet. It's about actually letting heritage go. Which is sometimes like counterintuitive for people who work in the heritage sector. But that idea of letting it go is actually very, very liberating, and it is what creates those new products, services, experiences, ideas. And I think that there's a lot of interesting avenues that we could pursue along that line, precisely because our heritage is so diverse. But what I would say about that is there's some learning that's come out of our experience, which is that you can't just put creatives into a kind of residency. You can't just plonk them there and expect them to come up with something. That the creative experience, creative juice, works when there is a relationship between people. And so in order to make that happen, you have to have people engaging both from the knowledge of the heritage and from the creative practitioner side, and sometimes that requires intermediaries, because they do sometimes speak different languages and operate on different time scales, and that needs to be thought about and brought together. But when it works, it's fantastic.
Thank you, Jo. Can I just give my last question to Dahlia? So 40 years on, what's your top tip for success?
Ooh.
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
I think it's the passion of the people who are engaged, whether they be consumers on the board or volunteers, whatever. It's been the passion that's absolutely driven everything. Can I just add one thing, and this is just following on from the conversations this morning, that as an arts organisation, and I think there are hundreds like us as well, over the years we've been very bad at business development model. It's always been the heart and the mind wins over. Well, the heart wins over, and then when you can't pay the bill, the mind sort of said, oh my God, yeah? And I think certainly within the last 10 years, the image is changing. And I would say this, I hate saying this, but you have to really have the passion, but all the sort of a business strategic model as well to be successful. And I think Art Asia is at that stage, but I can see lots of organisations that I work with, it's still the passion. It's about the art, it's not really about the money, you know. So that's what probably I would say.
Thank you, Dahlia. So if we could just all give a round of applause to Dahlia, Jo, Sally, Mark and Paulina. Thank you.